welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Louine Korai. I am so excited to have you back. This is video number 2 in our Q1 series. Last time we spoke, I was giving you practical hints and tips on how to be productive, some of the changes you can make. If you want, you can go back and look at that video because we are doing a series in order to help us to strategize and move forward. You know what you want to do. You want to turn that dream into a reality, and I want to help you to get to where you need to be. So today we are going to talk about how to get rid of negative thought patterns. You might be in a place where you know you want to achieve greatness, you know what you want to execute, but sometimes you have this nagging feeling, or you're constantly downplaying some of the things that are happening in your life, and you're constantly going back and forth trying to dissect what is going on, and you've got so much negative self-talk. So I want to give you a toolkit to help you counteract some of those negative thought patterns, to get rid of them so that you can move to the next level. Before we start, I would recommend you get a pen and paper because today is going to be a good one, and you might want to take some notes because I'm giving you a practical tip and I'm going to give you a framework I came up with which will help you to get to the next level. So before we start, we need to isolate and understand what exactly are negative thought patterns. And I wrote a list. It's anything that works against your natural thinking. So your natural process of thinking is supposed to be like smooth sailing, but sometimes there's procedure that comes in, or nips it in the bud, and now you find yourself doubting, you find yourself having fear or anything that comes to do that. That's a negative thought pattern. Sabotaging thoughts. It might be repetitive, hurtful self-comments that you speak. What is the negative self-talk that you've become so accustomed to? Sometimes you can't even take compliments. If someone pays you a compliment, you can't take it because you're constantly thinking there's an ulterior motive, or they are mocking you. The inability sometimes to see the good within yourself. You're always seeing the bad. You're not able to actually see any good within yourself. It's sometimes taking on board other people's toxic thought patterns or toxic comments, and it then plays on your mind constantly. Instead of you just leaving it at what it is, or saying my mind is not going to interact, you take that on board and you personalize it. It then becomes a way of life. It becomes your way of thinking because other people have said it. You've now taken it on board, and it's now a you issue. It's not a them issue, it's now a you issue. And also the inability to let go and just see things at face value. You dissect and counter analyze everything. When you're now sleeping before bed, you're thinking, what did those comments mean in that meeting? What exactly were they trying to say? And it plays on your mind constantly. You're constantly going back and forth. But in order for us to counteract it, you need to understand this one very important thing. What you think of yourself affects your outlook and output on life and on you as a whole. So what you think about yourself, it affects what you put out into the world. It affects your outlook, how you view the world, how you view meetings, how you view your success. If you do not envision, or if you cannot see yourself in that place where you are making change, where things are happening, it's because sometimes the negative self-talk is putting a block. It's putting a mental roadblock. You cannot see it because you cannot visualize. You cannot see it happening for yourself because in your mind you are not capable to see that there is a next level that you can actually get to. And where you are today is a direct correlation of some of the thoughts you've had. So they either materialized into action or non-action. What I mean by that is you might have had an idea and you put in all your effort and it's now an action. But sometimes there's a roadblock and it turns into a non-action. So where you are now, there's a direct correlation between some of the thoughts you had and where you are now. And we need to isolate whether our thoughts are actually helping us get to where we want to be, or our thoughts sabotaging us. Are our thoughts, blocking us? Is your negative self-talk stopping you from going to where you want to be? Is your negative self-talk blocking you and stopping you from actually achieving greatness? And how you address yourself in conversations and meetings is a direct link as well to how you see yourself. And we need to also remember some negative self-talk or some confidence issues stem from childhood. You might have had people who talked down at you. You might have had people, who didn't think you were good enough, and the way they spoke to you, it instilled these seeds of self-doubt. It instilled these seeds where you feel as if you are not capable of achieving anything. And because of that, it comes out in your general conversation. Because you don't see yourself as good enough, you would rather not apply for the job. Because you don't see yourself as good enough, you think you're not capable of, becoming CEO or anything. Because of what people have said, you have taken those thoughts and you've personalized them. They've become a part of you. You cannot separate where your thought pattern starts and where reality starts. You cannot separate people's opinions and what your actual natural thought pattern is, because everything is all jumbled up. Everything is it's all clustered in your brain. You cannot separate, and because of that, there is a mental roadblock. Because of that, you are not able to see the greatness that is within you. You are not able to see that you are actually capable of achieving so much more, because you have become so accustomed to the negative self-talk and the negative thought patterns. You cannot see the potential that lies within. And before we can address, how to counteract these negative self-talk, we need to address why it even exists. Because unless you counteract what's going on in your mind, you cannot change what you are putting out into the world. So we need to understand. We're going to get to the how you counteract it, but let's start with the why. Why have we allowed these negative thought patterns? Why have we allowed all this negativity to take root in our lives? Why are we so accustomed to it? Why are we befriending it? Why am I comfortable, accepting negative comments? Why am I comfortable people talking down to me? Well, what's the reason? Let's get to that. And the why is because we have normalized or rationalized things that are not normal. The standard has changed. Instead of you accepting that this is a negative comment and I can get rid of it, or I can counteract it, or I can push back, you have allowed it to become the norm. So instead of you actually setting healthy boundaries, you now think that is the norm. Your mind is conditioned to think this is how things happen. And because of that, you now are in a constant cycle. The second point is it's easier to criticize yourself because you would rather see the negative than actually see the positive or the good within yourself. It's easier for you to self-sabotage than for you to actually pay yourself a compliment. It's easier for you to give up than to actually put in work. It's easier for you to say, you know what, it's not going to happen anyway. Why should I even bother? It's easier for you to criticize yourself than it is to compliment yourself. That within itself is a big problem. The negative self-talk, we've trained our minds to not form boundaries. What I mean by that is where some people would say to you, I don't appreciate that comment, can you please take it back? You have become so accustomed to accepting everything. Your mind has allowed these things to become the norm, and in so doing, you cannot put a stop to it. You lack confrontational capabilities or boundaries, and because of that, you are constantly in this cycle, in this constant negative cycle. We don't reflect or take on board what these negative self-talk does to us. We don't know what it does to our overall health or our productivity. And because you don't sit and reflect and think, oh, what does it actually mean for myself? What does it mean? You allow it to stint your growth. You allow it to be the be-all and end-all. You don't cross-examine that thought. You don't sit back and say, actually, why am I thinking like this? You never sit and reflect and think, why have I allowed things to get to this point? And the final point is, have you ever imagined that your thought pattern changes and how you feel about yourself sometimes changes? So how you feel about yourself can change based on like a day, a circumstance, that sort of thing. But if you allow these things to become the norm, you are not able to differentiate whether your mood is based on the negative self-talk, because everything, like I said, it's all jumbled up in your brain and you don't understand whether you are coming or you are going. But then how do we tackle these negative thought patterns? I have come up with a framework that is going to help you to get to where you need to be and to push back and say, actually, enough is enough. I know that I'm able to achieve greatness. Actually, I know that this thought is here to try and, sabotage me. Actually, I know that this thought is trying to stop me. Actually, this is someone projecting on me. This is not actually what I think about myself. You need to get to a place where you can isolate and say, where this thought stops is not where my progress stops. You are able to stop the negative self-talk and still continue to be productive. So what I have come up with is, drum roll, I have called it the DOCC framework. It is all me. it is a Louis Kurai framework. It's called the DOCC framework. What does DOCC stand for? It means you need to define it, you need to own it, you need to challenge it, and you need to change it. What do I mean by that? You need to get to a point where you define what the negative thought pattern is. Is it a behavior? Is it a trait? You are actively aware that it is there and it is now a stumbling block. Once you define that this is what I know is a problem, right? You can see it is stunting your development. You can see it is stunting your growth. You need to acknowledge how it makes you feel and why you feel that way. Why I'm saying you need to define it is, unless you isolate and say this is what the issue is, you will never be able to move forward. You will think it's a lot of other things, but actually it is one thing. Isolate it. What exactly is it that is stopping you? What exactly is the negative thought pattern? So you define it. And then you own it. You are not personalizing it, but admitting you know it exists. And in so doing, you are in a position to address it, and you are aware it has the potential to stop your progression and where you are going. And at this point, you are saying, I need to nip it into the bud. I need to nip it in the bud, because if not, I will allow myself to continue to go back and forth doing the same thing over and over and over again. The third point is you need to challenge it. You need to say, how am I going to move forward? Is this how I want to identify myself? Is it making me happy where I am right now? Or has it gotten me far? My negative thinking pattern, how far have I come with it? Have I allowed opportunities to go because I think I'm not good enough? Have I allowed myself to sit and cry and wallow in this like self-pity? And why are you unhappy with the progress thus far? And what can you do about it? I know as Christians, we say, we counteract it with the word of God. I always go back to Romans 12 verse 2 that says, be transformed by the renewal of your mind. Because your mind is your brain is such a powerful tool. You are able to create, you are able to do so many things. If you think it, you can be it. So if you counteract, if you can challenge and cross-examine, what it is that's stopping you, you are in a very good position to make change, because now you know what actually is stopping you. And the last point is you need to change it. You need to say, this is how far it has gone and how far I am allowing it to go. You need to constantly go back and make an active effort and say, it's a conscious decision to change your thinking. It's not something that will come natural to you. It's something you're constantly having to do. You need to change it. In order for you to change your life, you need to be willing to grow and to develop these healthy, thought patterns. And what aids are around you that allow you to constantly make good decisions, and for you to constantly say, I want to change it. Because it's easy for you to go back to old habits. It's easier for you to go back to what you are used to than for you to walk into what's the new. So it's easier for you to go back, to regress, than for you to proceed and go where you want to be. So the DOCC framework, you need to define what the negative behavior or thought pattern is. You need to own it. You need to accept that it exists. You're not personalizing it. You are saying, I know it exists. I know it's there. It's not an elephant in the room anymore. I can see it's right here, and I'm in a position to address it. You need to challenge it. Why do I feel this way? Why have I allowed it to get this far? What can I do about it? And then you need to change it. And change is painful. Change is grueling. Change is not natural for most people, because you will always go back to something you are used to. So then it becomes a habitual process. You need to constantly be in a position to change your thinking. And I want you to constantly remember, you cannot change everyone's assumption of you. You cannot change what people think. So people will always have an opinion. People will always say negative things, but you are in a position to say, this is how far these thoughts are gonna, come into my life. This is how far I'm gonna allow it to affect me, right? Healthy thought patterns are developed. They don't just happen. You might think, just because now I know the DOCC framework, I'm able to. No, you constantly have to do it over and over and over again. You need to wake up and say, you know what? Today I'm going to do DOCC. For every decision I'm going to make, I'm going to ask myself, am I using the DOCC framework? Because if not, you are in a position where you will go back to old habits, and then the negative self-talk will even diminish the work you've done. So you need to constantly develop these healthy thought patterns, right? How you think of yourself comes out in your speech, it comes out in your conduct, it comes out in your business habits, it comes out in your health, in your sleeping pattern, in everything. It affects your overall health, mental health, your physical health, and your productivity. So unless you are in a position to counteract these things, you will always have an issue, and the lack of boundaries will put you in a position where you might have good ideas, you might have a good business plan, but you are not able to execute it because you're constantly now feeling tired and run down because the negativity is weighing you down. And the last point, what you don't like, you're always in a position to change. You are capable of saying, this is how far this has gone on. I'm in a position to change it, and I want my thinking pattern to be good. So I want you for the next 2 weeks to sit there and think for yourself. What are some of the negative thought patterns I've personalized, I've allowed into my life? What does it look like? How does it make me feel? What does it look like to others? Is it me constantly lashing out? Is it me, turning away opportunities? Is it me being scared? Well, how has it affected my life? And then once you isolate that, what can you do about it? Then go into the DOCC framework and start thinking, how can I constantly make a conscious effort and a conscious decision to change my outlook on life? Next time, we're going to be talking about how you're going to get started, because now you know how to be productive. Now you know how to get rid of these negative thought patterns. The next video, we're going to be talking about how you're going to get started and how you're going to get to where you want to be. I hope you guys have an amazing day. Take care, and remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share with your friends and family. Take care, guys. Bye.